कनाडा में ये होता है कि दे रिक्वायर कि आपके पास कैनेडियन एक्सपीरियंस हो, तो वो काफ़ी फिर मुश्किल हो जाता है। फिर लोगों को आके फिर लाइसेंस या कुछ और करवाने पड़ते हैं, सर्टिफिकेशंस करवाने पड़ते हैं जो उनको पहले से नहीं पता होता है कि उनको करना होता है। तो अगर इंसान सही एटीट्यूड के साथ आए तो ऑब्वियसली दे कैन सक्सीड, मगर अगर इंसान ये सोच के आएगा कि उनको फौरन दूसरे दिन ही जॉब मिल जाएगी अपने ही फील्ड में, तो वो फिर प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है। और आजकल बिकॉज ऑफ द राइट विंग सेंटिमेंट्स थोड़ा सा अब ज्यादा स्ट्रिक्ट हो रहा है कैनेडियन गवर्नमेंट भी स्टूडेंट्स के मामले में, एज फार एज जब उनकी डिग्रीज खत्म हो जाएं तो उनके पास कौन सी वीजाज रह जाती हैं। तो देखिए आजकल ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज बहुत होते हैं। I'm not saying that any of this is a guarantee. This is just what I would advise. There are no guarantees when it comes to these things. आप कोशिश करें जितना हो सके आप ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज, if you can afford them, आप करें कैनेडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज से ऑनलाइन अगर आपकी फील्ड में है अवेलेबल। दूसरी बात यह है कि आप आने से पहले ही आप रिसर्च कर लें कि अगर आप फॉर एग्जाम्पल you are even a doctor, you will need to figure out licensing in Canada immediately. I have family members who have had to now start working on their dentistry licenses, for example, because they came from Pakistan. They're very highly skilled dentists in Pakistan, but nevertheless, Canada में that's not accepted. आपको dentistry की license वहाँ पे करना होगा फिर से, and it's not easy. Obviously, it's not easy in Pakistan either. कभी कभार ये होता है कि रिश्तेदारों से बात करें तो रिश्तेदार will not always give you the best advice. I mean, I know this sounds bad to say, but you cannot just rely on one person's opinion on things. You need to get a wide range of opinions. आप अपनी भी Google आपके हाथ में है, आप Google कर लें living costs in Canada. Living costs, especially in big cities like Toronto, are very very. तो आप surprise नहीं हो फिर जाके ना कि फिर अगर आपको sharing करना है ये सब चीजें करनी है, तो you have to just mentally prepare for it from before landing as well.
Watch Federal Post. Bold and independent.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मैं हूं हसन जफर और ये है प्रोग्राम टॉकिंग पॉलिटिक्स। मुझे ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं इस वक्त वकार रिजवी साहब। वकार रिजवी साहब इज अ कनाडा बेस्ड मीडिया एंड पॉलिटिकल कंसल्टेंट। वकार साहब, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग।
Thank you very much for having me.
इस वक्त जो हमारे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, क्योंकि आप कनाडा में बेस्ड हैं, तो यू कैन कमेंट ऑन इट वेरी वेल, कि ट्रम्प साहब के आने के बाद जो एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं यूएसए में with regard to the Pakistanis or immigrants in general, उस बारे में आप क्या बताना चाहेंगे?
तो जी, the issue of immigration is obviously a very very important one. Canada में भी काफी right wing feelings आ रही हैं immigration के बारे में. इसके बारे में ये कहा जा सकता है कि obviously जो immigrants जो high skilled होते हैं, जो usually Pakistanis होते हैं, to a certain extent, especially technical skills में, they're always very appreciated. मगर ये एक issue है कि obviously जिनके पास Canadian experience नहीं है or US experience नहीं, the US is usually a bit easier than Canada. Actually, quite a bit easier than Canada, I will say, when it comes to whether or not they accept your experience, international experience, that is. Canada में ये होता है कि they require कि आपके पास Canadian experience हो, तो वो काफी फिर मुश्किल हो जाता है। फिर लोगों को आके फिर लाइसेंस या कुछ और करवाने पड़ते हैं, सर्टिफिकेशंस करवाने पड़ते हैं जो उनको पहले से नहीं पता होता है कि उनको करना होता है। तो अगर इंसान सही एटीट्यूड के साथ आए तो ऑब्वियसली दे कैन सक्सीड, मगर अगर इंसान ये सोच के आएगा कि उनको फौरन दूसरे दिन ही जॉब मिल जाएगी अपने ही फील्ड में, तो वो फिर प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है। और आजकल बिकॉज ऑफ द राइट विंग सेंटिमेंट्स थोड़ा सा अब ज्यादा स्ट्रिक्ट हो रहा है कैनेडियन गवर्नमेंट भी स्टूडेंट्स के मामले में, एज फार एज जब उनकी डिग्रीज खत्म हो जाएं तो उनके पास कौन सी वीजाज रह जाती हैं, उनके पास राइट है रहने का या नहीं है। ये सब चीजें अब काफी डिबेट हो रही है इनके बारे में, बिकॉज जब भी आपको पता है कि दुनिया में इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज होती हैं, कहीं पे भी होती है, पाकिस्तान में भी ये होता है, हर जगह दुनिया में ये होता है, तो फिर जो इमिग्रेंट्स होते हैं या जो मिनोरिटीज होते हैं या जो बाहर के जो लोग आए हुए होते हैं, उन्हीं को फिर टारगेट किया जाता है लोग, या गवर्नमेंट्स कहती हैं कि उनको स्केपगोट करती हैं, वो कहती हैं कि इन लोगों की वजह से आपकी जॉब्स जा रही हैं जो ऑब्वियसली वो सच होता नहीं है, बिकॉज एक्चुअली इमिग्रेंट्स कहीं पे भी दुनिया में ज्यादा देख लें, स्पेशली वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में, immigrants are always in the higher paying jobs or they're higher skilled at the very least. So this is an argument that is not true, but nevertheless it is an argument.
It is. तो ये जो आपने कहा right attitude, what do you mean by right attitude?
So I will say that बहुत लोग आते हैं, जैसे मैंने कहा, बहुत लोग आते हैं इस एटीट्यूड के साथ कि आपको दूसरे दिन अपनी फील्ड में जॉब मिल जाएगी। या लोग इस एटीट्यूड के साथ आते हैं कि आप कनाडा आ गए तो बस अब आप सेट हैं। कोई गारंटी नहीं है जिंदगी में। जस्ट बिकॉज आप कनाडा पहुंच गए हैं, कोई गारंटी आपकी सक्सेस की नहीं है। तो जैसे मैंने कहा, लोगों को सर्टिफिकेशंस करनी पड़ती हैं। जितना भी आप क्वालिफाइड हो पाकिस्तान में या यूएई में या कहीं और दुनिया में, आपको कनाडा आके सर्टिफिकेशंस करनी होंगी, अनलेस यू हैव डन नेटवर्किंग ऑलरेडी ऑन द ग्राउंड, और अनलेस आपके पास जॉब ऑफर लेटर ऑफिशियल आपके हाथ में है, जो बहुत ही रेयर होता है आजकल। It's extremely rare that that happens unless you are very, very highly skilled in some technical field. It can happen, but again, like I said, it's very, very rare. तो अगर आप सही attitude के साथ आए कि there are no expectations, there are no guarantees, and just because you have reached Canada does not mean you have succeeded. अगर उस attitude के साथ आए, and attitude ये भी हो कि आप flexible हों, कि जिस काम के साथ what you are ready to do and what you are not ready to do, then that will really help you going forward at least, because वरना फिर लोग depression में चले जाते हैं ना, because लोग फिर ये समझते हैं कि I failed, or I don't have the skills, etc. वो बात है ही नहीं। बस ये है कि they do not accept international experience as much, and you need to learn the ways of how things work in that specific country that you have immigrated to.
Pakistani qualifications, let's think in terms of young Pakistanis. उन्हें कौन सी ऐसी qualification पाकिस्तान से करनी चाहिए that might be helpful for them when they arrive in North America, US and Canada?
तो देखिए, आजकल ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज बहुत होती हैं. I'm not saying that any of this is a guarantee. This is just what I would advise. There are no guarantees when it comes to these things. आप कोशिश करें जितना हो सके, आप ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज, if you can afford them, आप करें. Canadian universities से ऑनलाइन, अगर आपकी फील्ड में है अवेलेबल. दूसरी बात यह है कि आप आने से पहले ही आप रिसर्च करने के, अगर आप, for example, you are even a doctor, you will need to figure out licensing in Canada immediately. I have family members who have had to now start working on their dentistry licenses, for example, because they came from Pakistan. They're very highly skilled dentists in Pakistan, but nevertheless, Canada में that's not accepted. आपको dentistry के license वहाँ पे करना होगा फिर से, and it's not easy, obviously. It's not easy in Pakistan either. तो वो आप उस attitude के साथ आए, as they did as well. उनको पहले से पता था कि they will not hit the ground running. उनको आके पहले licensing करनी होगी. तो पहले से पढ़ाई करनी थी उन्होंने पाकिस्तान ही से. उन्होंने किताबें खरीदी थी, ऑनलाइन देख ली थी किताबें क्या थी. So they've been able to write the exam a lot quicker. And we'll say mental attitude के साथ आते हैं ना कि this is a necessity का. आपको कोई guarantee नहीं होगा. तो that's the biggest thing I would advise कि आप अपने field में देखें licenses क्या हैं, rules and regulations क्या हैं Canada में, that will get you that step ahead of the others. Because आप ये नहीं हो कि आप land हो फिर आप discover कर रहे हैं कि क्या करना है आपको. फिर आपके पास time waste होता है ना फिर.
Yes, I can understand. ये तो बहुत मुश्किल. So what you are saying कि घर से चलने से पहले they should do their homework and they should figure out कि वहाँ पे क्या requirements हैं और किस field में ज़्यादा requirements हैं. That is important. We also hear about very dismal conditions of Pakistani students in Canada and USA. ये भी सुना है कि वो फिर बहुत large number में sharing करते हैं कमरों की. Some are even sleeping on the streets. ऐसी भी बातें सुनने में आई हैं. How far is that correct? How bad is the situation for the Pakistani students?
देखिए, हम लोग यही समझते हैं कि अपने बेटे को बेटी को भेज रहे हैं हम लोग बाहर तो सेट हैं. वो एक एटीट्यूड होता है ना. एक जमाने में होता था दुबई चले गए तो वो दुबई इट्स मीन सक्सेस. तो भी हम लोग यही समझते हैं कि अपने बेटे को भेज दे, बेटी को भेज दे, तो दैट मींस they've automatically succeeded. So, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying that this is that we are not doing this out of necessity, or that we're doing this to hurt our children, or that those students who are going themselves are doing it out of any incorrect intentions. I'm just saying कि हम लोग सही homework नहीं करते हैं जाने से पहले. So, there are some stories of some people. I wouldn't say that the conditions are horrible across the board, because Pakistani bhi kafi, especially as young people, we are willing to do a lot of work, odd jobs karte hain students. मैं भी बहुत दफा देख चुका हूँ university campuses पे Pakistani students होते हैं या fast food में काम कर रहे होते हैं to make ends meet. वो तो होता ही है, वो काफी जगह होता है दुनिया में. I mean, America में भी होता है. It's not something unique to Canada. nevertheless वही होता है कि if you are going with the attitude कि all you have to pay for is your tuition, that is incorrect as well.
Yes.
आपको tuition भी pay करना है, आपको life का भी daily cost का भी कहीं न कहीं से गुजारा करना है. So you have to really do your homework. You have to, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but you really have to do your research before coming. And ऐसे लोगों से बात करें जो आपको biased view नहीं दें. कभी कभार ये होता है कि रिश्तेदारों से बात करें तो रिश्तेदार will not always give you the best advice. I mean, I know this sounds bad to say, but you cannot just rely on one person's opinion on things. You need to get a wide range of opinions. आप अपनी भी Google आपके हाथ में है, आप Google कर लें. Living costs in Canada, living costs, especially in big cities like Toronto, are very, very high. तो आप सरप्राइज नहीं हो फिर जाके ना कि फिर अगर आपको शेयरिंग करना है ये सब चीजें करनी है तो you have to just mentally prepare for it from before landing as well. कि फिर because of the high cost in Toronto, because houses are now $1 million plus across Toronto, अब आप उस attitude के साथ आए कि you will not be able to afford to pay rent on your own. You have to come with that attitude. If you come with the right attitude, then you can do it. But वो है कि अगर आप पहुंच के आपको पता चल रही हैं चीजें तो फिर obviously for इंसान के लिए बहुत मुश्किल होगा.
पाकिस्तानी immigrants और other nationalities, उनका status आप कैसे compare करेंगे कनाडा में? Let me be a little bit more specific. Indian community है वहाँ पे, Sikh community बहुत बड़ी है कनाडा में, और उनसे अगर हम compare करें पाकिस्तानी community, so how well positioned they are in relation to each other?
So I'm going to be a bit critical of our community for a moment. ये है कि we are not as a community very united. And I say this with the best of intentions. I'm not even going to just talk about the Sikhs and the Indians, and I'm not saying that they're always united as well. उनमें भी problems होती हैं, हर group में होती हैं disagreements. मगर वो होता है कि जैसे my own parents ran businesses in Toronto when we immigrated. My parents moved on the entrepreneurship visa. So अम्मी अब्बू ने, you know, when they ran their store, we had a Chinese business next door to us. And Chinese business, because they only bought from Chinese wholesalers, and the Chinese community जो उस area में थी rallied around them. वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ उन्हीं से खरीदते थे. और ये convenience store था, तो it wasn't a very fancy store. It was just a convenience store जो corner store होता है.
Chinatown type की जगह बन गई थी. They always created
Chinatown type जब जगह नहीं थी. It was actually in a very white neighborhood, to be very honest. हम लोग काफी white neighborhood में थे उस वक्त. मगर वो था कि जो भी Chinese थे उस area में, आप समझ लें, in the vicinity, आप समझ लें, they would always make it a point to just buy milk from this store, for example. या toast या जो भी खरीदना है, daily items जो grocery items जो खरीदनी है, बस इसी दुकान से खरीदना, because they're Chinese. And so they grew very quickly. I think within 5 or 6 years they had 4 stores across Toronto. And this was not a rich Chinese family. हम लोग भी देख चुके थे, पहले जब आए थे, they could not speak a word of English. Nevertheless, they succeeded because the community rallied around. Their own community rallied around. हमारा ये होता है, and I'm not saying this is across the board. I know that there are a lot of exceptions to this rule. हमारा ये होता है कि because Pakistani own businesses, तो आप हमको फिर discount दें, because हम भी पाकिस्तानी. या आप मस्जिद में चाहें तो आपको कहते हैं कि आप because मुसलमान हैं या पाकिस्तानी, आप हमको discount दें हर चीज पे. अब वो business तो ऐसे नहीं चलेगी. Business ठप हो जाएगी ना ऐसे. अगर if you're not willing to put the dollars forward to support your own people's businesses, तो फिर काम नहीं चलेगा ऐसे. And so the Indian community is much more united as well than we are, at least. Context की बात कर रहा हूँ. The Sikh community has been there for generations now. तो उनका ज़्यादा established है. They made their money basically in trucking. So they drove the first generation of Sikhs that came. They were able to take advantage. उस वक्त 1970s में and 1960s में the Canadian government was giving out land as well. कि आप जाके इस land को populate करें. They were driving trucks across Canada, जो आसान काम नहीं है, of course. It's not easy to drive a truck for 24 hours, for example, straight. Yes. Nevertheless, they worked very hard and they are really united now as well.
So ये इस तरह से है. जो पाकिस्तानी जो professionals हैं, उनकी क्या सूरत हाल है?
Professionals are doing very well. बहुत लोग हैं जो अब especially second generation, third generation जो Pakistanis are doing very, very well financially, of course. And gee, I mean, there is a very strong, ऐसे भी नहीं है कि just a minute, I didn't want to make it seem like we're not a strong community. We are a strong we are doing very financially well. Real estate, we do very, very well. I know of many real estate agents who are Pakistani who are very, very good at their jobs, and they're making, very, very good money. There are professionals in every field. IT में तो हम लोग होते ही अच्छे हैं, technical fields में तो हम लोग होते ही अच्छे हैं, engineering में भी हम लोग बहुत अच्छे, overall we do well anywhere in the world, even the Gulf countries.
Well, that's
So,
very good news.
in all those fields we do well. Gee.
Yes. So अभी तो सारी नजरें लगी हुई हैं यूएसए पे, इलेक्शंस होने जा रहे हैं, एक्सपेक्ट नवंबर में होंगे, ट्रम्प साहब के जीतने की उम्मीद है. हाउ स्ट्रांग इज दैट पॉसिबिलिटी?
I mean, every time Biden comes out publicly, I think that possibility grows stronger. आपने देखा होगा अभी Biden introduced the president of Ukraine by calling him President Putin. तो अब वो, these sorts of mistakes that Biden keeps making makes it easier and easier that Trump jeet jayega. Because everything in politics is about your public image.
Yeah.
और अगर आप public image नहीं maintain कर सकते हैं, अगर आपकी image यही है कि you keep making these really dumb mistakes, because I mean, at the end of the day, he is an old man. He is in a position of great power, the leader of the free world, just हम लोग कहते हैं. Or he's not being able to string two words together properly in the English language. अपनी ज़बान है तो ऐसी भी नहीं कि कोई और ज़बान बोलता है. और आप President Zelensky को introduce कर रहे हैं as President Putin. I mean, that's a very huge mistake. And you cannot walk off the stage yourself. You have to have your wife, pull you off the stage. Debate का जो हुआ था. So I think Trump के लिए काफी आसान हो गया almost stage. That's not to say that Trump is liked a lot or that Trump will be good for Canada or America or the world. Obviously, Trump will not be. But Biden is not being that good either. I mean, Palestine ke issue pe Biden has been horrible. So the Muslim or Arab vote is not a guaranteed thing for Biden either. Or for Donald Trump. I get the feeling that जो मुसलमान हैं या जो अरबी हैं, अरब जो हैं, America में, many of them are going to probably sit out this election. So I think there will be a minor boycott of sorts, or there's just confusion in the community about who and what to really vote for.
So लगता यही है कि ट्रम्प साहब, although he is not getting any younger, he's 78 himself. बहुत ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है दोनों की एजेस में. बाइडेन साहब की he's 81, 82, he's 78, so not a huge difference. लेकिन जो इस वक्त उनकी हेल्थ कंडीशन है, that's the problem. तो बात ये हो रही थी कि मिशेल ओबामा को पिच किया जाएगा, बाइडेन साहब को विड्रॉ कर लिया जाएगा. इस बारे में आपको लगता है कि कितना ट्रूथ है इसमें?
It's very hard to tell. Abhi ke liye to I think the Democrat Party is sort of stuck. Abhi inhone already, you've dug your grave, so you have to, you have to live with the consequences now. But yeah, there is now more and more voices on the Democrat side itself who support Biden. मगर कह रहे हैं कि after all these mistakes, जो public जो image जो खराब हो रही है उसकी, the fact that वो debate नहीं कर सक रहा है सही से, ये सब चीजें are not a good sign for November or just for his presidency. अगर जीत भी जाए by some miracle, what kind of a president will he really be? And ये भी डर है कि because obviously यही होता है ना, your vice president steps in if something happens to you. And Kamala Harris is not she's qualified, of course. She's a very smart woman, of course. I mean, you have to be smart to get into that position, but nevertheless, she has nowhere near the kind of qualifications that Joe Biden has.
Makes the president. So, yes.
Exactly. The presidency and vice presidency are two very different things. So I think there was a nervousness that Kamala Harris, for example, if something were to happen to Biden, would she make a good president? That's also a huge discussion.
और ये भी तो है ना कि are the American people really ready for that kind of surprise ke vice president takes over because of the bad health of the president? वो भी एक वो ज़्यादा एक शॉकिंग चीज होगी. Let's say ट्रम्प साहब जीत जाते हैं in November and he's back in his Oval Office after 4 years. How will the world look like after that?
I think Trump will come back a lot more empowered. So what we saw Trump, that was Trump 1.0. This will be Trump 2.0. And I think his mandate will be much stronger. And this will not be the fault of anybody. Like I think it will be easy to blame, or right wing, far right, white supremacist views हैं, ये जो भी उसके followers के views हैं, वो सब सच है अपनी जगह. Magar, if you have created the grounds that are sort of ensuring that he wins, then it's your fault as Democrats or whoever votes him in, because they feel that they cannot vote Democrat. So I think that वो एक चीज़ है, he'll be a lot more empowered. So I think in that regard, it will be a lot worse for immigrants in the country, for minorities in America for sure. So I'm speaking within the country. His policies will be, I don't think he will do something directly against immigrants as far as those immigrants who are already settled. वो जो बाहर से आते हैं, जो मेक्सिको से आते हैं या लैटिन अमेरिका से आते हैं, वो एटलीस्ट प्रिटेंड करेगा कि वो ज्यादा उनके अगेंस्ट है, इवन दो उसके खुद के गोल्फ रिजॉर्ट्स में वहीं के लोग काम कर रहे होते हैं. मगर फॉरेन पॉलिसी में he may become a lot harsher. He was already a bit harsh in his first tenure, but I think that this time around he will be a lot harsher because he will feel a lot more empowered.
What kind of impact is that going to have on Gaza and Ukraine war?
Ukraine mein to abhi he has said that he has a plan, right? Obviously he has not discussed what that plan exactly means, but he just had a meeting with, I think it was Viktor Orban of Hungary, and Viktor Orban said that he likes Trump's plan when it comes to Ukraine. अब वो issue क्या होता है, कैसे resolve करता है? I think that Trump has always been against the American view on Ukraine in the sense that he's not pro-Putin or pro-Russia, but he just feels that this enmity with Russia towards a childish game sort of हो चुका है. As far as Gaza goes, I think that unfortunately he will be a lot worse. And that's just the reality of life because Trump knows that for his own political longevity, he will need to be very, very close to the Israelis and will need to keep the Israeli lobby happy. So वो एक reality है, and I don't think that that's going to change.
उन्होंने अपनी फर्स्ट प्रेसिडेंसी में जेरूसलम को कैपिटल भी डिक्लेयर किया था, वो यानी रिकॉग्नाइज किया था. सो वी कैन एक्सपेक्ट दैट समथिंग इवन फर्दर इन दैट डायरेक्शन व्हेन ही कम्स बैक इनटू पावर. उन्होंने अपनी वो डिबेट जो फर्स्ट हुई थी उनकी CNN पे बाइडेन साहब के साथ, उन्होंने कहा था कि अगर मैं प्रेसिडेंट होता तो पुतिन कभी भी अटैक ही ना करते यूक्रेन के ऊपर. तो इसको कैसे एनालाइज करते हैं? इफ ही इज बैक इन ऑफिस, तो इज द वॉर गोइंग टू एंड एनी टाइम सून?
I think the Ukraine war, yes, will end. I think that he will be able to convince Zelensky as well to compromise, because I think abhi issue yahi hai ki Zelensky is also not in a compromising mood. And say baat bhi, I mean, obviously if your country has been attacked, you're not going to be very willing to compromise. I also think that there is a bit of naivete on the part of Zelensky because he feels कि अगर मेरे पास Western support है, मेरे पास Western arms and ammunition है, मेरे पास promises हैं कि हम लोग EU join कर लेंगे, हम लोग NATO join कर लेंगे, ये सब promises मुझे दी गई हैं, तो फिर मैं क्यों compromise करूं? मगर उसको ये realization नहीं हो रहा है कि ये सब जो processes होती हैं, extension to the EU, extension to NATO are not going to happen tomorrow. Years long, decades long processes hoti hain. So it doesn't matter in the short term. In the short term, your people are dying. In the short term, at some point in time, abhi to aapke sath log khade hain, magar kab tak? A wartime president can only remain popular for a certain period of time before people start questioning कि भाई अब तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया, अब तो कहीं पे जाके अब compromise कर लें कि at least the death and destruction stop. So I think that at the very least, Trump has a very different attitude than Biden in that regard, and I think wohi ek point hoga jo will help Trump be able to bring in some form of peace into that area.
Yes. क्योंकि ये देखिए जो वहाँ पे सिचुएशन है वो बहुत प्रिकेरियस है इन द सेंस कि यूक्रेन में जो मिलिट्री एज के लोग हैं वो बहुत जल्दी उनकी तादाद कम हो रही है बिकॉज ऑफ द कैजुअलिटीज इन द वॉर. और दूसरी साइड पे तो फिर इसका मतलब है कि अ प्रोलॉन्ग्ड वॉर इज इन पुतिन्स फेवर, कि वो जितना उसको स्ट्रेच करेंगे उतना ही वेस्ट के ऊपर प्रेशर माउंट होता जाएगा. सो इन दैट रिगार्ड इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर प्रेसिडेंट ट्रम्प व्हेन ही बिकम्स द प्रेसिडेंट कि इस वॉर को जल्दी खत्म कराएं. तो उसमें कुछ दे के ही वॉर खत्म करानी पड़ेगी. रशियन ट्रूप्स आर नॉट गोइंग टू विड्रॉ फ्रॉम दोज ईस्टर्न रीजन्स ऑफ यूक्रेन. How do you
Exactly,
see
and
that?
this is changing a lot of the domestic politics within these Western countries as well, right? Though आपने भी देखा होगा that America में there's a lot of conversation now on the, especially on the Republican side, that why do we keep sending money to Ukraine? Why are we not using that money within our country?
Yeah.
And these are billions of dollars. Billions of dollars continually go towards Ukraine. And America में infrastructure in some areas is falling apart. आप वो infrastructure का अपने जो funds हैं आप redirect कर रहे हैं towards Ukraine because आपने बस कहा था कि Russia is the boogeyman. Russia को कहीं न किसी तरह से defeat करना है हम लोगों को. अब वो Russia जैसे आपने कहा is not going to give up. Russia is a very large country, has a very large military, and it has decided that it wants what it wants. It had been warning for years about NATO expansion. Ab wo sahi kya ya galat kya, wo ek debate hai. Obviously, attacking Ukraine, attacking a sovereign country is obviously not correct. Nevertheless, it's not like people did not know that this was going to happen at some point in time. तो वो भी सब ये सब बातें हो रही हैं कि the money, especially even in Canada, बहुत बात हो रही है इसके बारे में कि why do we keep sending money to Ukraine? And Canada also sends a lot of money. And this is at a time that the Canadian economy is not as strong as American economy anyways. पहले दिन से इतनी strong नहीं थी. मगर अब तो और भी weak हो गया because we keep redirecting money to other countries instead of spending it in our own country where we really badly need that money to be spent.
Yeah. How difficult is the relationship between Canada and India now after the Khalistan leader's assassination in Canada?
I think it's a love-hate relationship in some ways. Canada has a very difficult position, politically speaking, I'm saying here, and completely as a neutral voice. I think that because there are so many Indians in very, very influential positions within Canada, be it politically or be it financially, that the Canadian government cannot just simply cut off the name. I mean, like it cannot go very, very tough on India just because it will not make political sense for any politician to do so. So it's a very tough balancing act. The balancing act is very, very tough, and I don't think that they have been able to figure it out correctly. Kabhi statement nikal dete hain ki, they criticize India and then the Indians and hit back with a statement, and then for the Indian Canadians react as well.
That's called giving lip service to the matter. Nothing more than that. So last question. Pakistan की जो इस वक्त political situation है, यहाँ पे economic situation है, how does Pakistan look from where you are sitting?
I think that there's always this image that when we look from the outside in, it's very dangerous. So I think that it's very hard to always judge things from the outside in. So I will never say that the image that one gets sitting outside the country is always the correct image. Yes, of course, things are tough. But I will also say that no one should be under the impression that because things are tough in Pakistan, that things are easy anywhere else in the world. Just a minute at the top of this conversation, there are no guarantees because you're sitting in Canada or America or anywhere else in the developed world, जो आपको बाहर से लगती है कि बहुत अमीर लोग हैं, बहुत अमीर मुल्क है, that does not necessarily mean that everybody is living like that. And obviously this happens in every country, and I know that this is a logical thing to be saying. Nevertheless, it needs to be said because I think बहुत लोगों के जो दिमाग में जो image होता है वो ये होता है कि पाकिस्तान सब किसी तरह से निकल जाए. अब किसी तरह से नहीं निकल जाए. That's not a good thing for you to do because अगर you're leaving without a plan, if you're leaving without doing your homework, then you might actually end up in a much worse position than you are in Pakistan, जहाँ पे at least पाकिस्तान में ये होता है कि आपके थोड़ा सा family support होती है, आपका एक support system थोड़ा सा होता है. It may not be very wealthy, you may not have very wealthy parents or relatives, but nevertheless, कोई ना कोई तो है आपका support system. यहाँ पे, I mean, in the West, your life is very individualistic. You're not going to have that many people willing to support you.
Yes, at least पाकिस्तान में रह रहे हैं तो आपके पास छत है और सोने के लिए बिस्तर है, वहाँ तो इसके लिए बहुत कुछ करना पड़ता है.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Waqar Rizvi साहब, join करने का, for sharing your insights into all these interesting things. आप लोगों को देखने का शुक्रिया. इजाजत दीजिए. खुदा हाफिज. पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद.